Jimmy, did you send me the questions?
Welcome everybody to the Real Sheeps podcast. We're thinking about renaming it a meme cast. It's a podcast for the community, featuring the community, and today we've got a very special guest, the infamous Patrick Lauder, and with me we have your hosts Slick Rick and Jimmy Boy. Welcome
Woo!
everybody, and welcome Pat. How you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm
Oh
doing
my,
great. How are you?
oh my goodness, you're Dutch. That accent.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so
Terrible, huh?
sultry. No one was expecting that.
Why
So, how
not?
are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us today. Super honored and excited to have you here. And I think a lot of us are looking forward to getting to know more about you. So, let's kick this thing off. I mean, you're kind of tight on time, aren't you? You're an on
Yeah,
schedule fella. So
exactly.
we'll stick to the main points, and we'll cherish every moment we've got. So let's start things off with just telling us about yourself. Who is the Pat Lauder or Patrick Lauder? What do you prefer, Pat or Patrick?
Patrick.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Who is the Patrick Lauder?
So, so I developed some Dogecoin, and that's why how most people know me. Um, I came to Dogecoin in like 2014. I was playing around with some other cryptos, Litecoin, Digibyte when it launched. I heard about Dogecoin, but it was like, you know, just something, and there were like a million coins launching back then. So yeah, I didn't pay much attention. And then somewhere in just before April, people started working on new version. I ran some tests on it just for fun, found that some stuff was broken, and yeah, I fixed it, got into coding for Dogecoin Core, and from there, went forward. So it's like pretty casual actually, and pretty cool. Um, Other than that, yeah, I've got a lot of experience in financial systems, financial companies. So I've been doing things like um, investment firms. I've been working for um, like very big companies that create like shopping malls or office space, things like that. And then after I went to more transactional finance, I've been working on systems for um, basically create public transportation access, like ticketing, access on a bus, and then the big systems where you can pay with like your bank card, stuff like that. So yeah, I've kind of made a career out of that, and in the meantime, I've been developing stuff for Dogecoin.
Hmm. So, how did you end up doing the transition from something like that into crypto? Like, you just kind of like what was your draw to crypto? Obviously, you got into Dogecoin when there was millions of other things out there, but what was the transition from the financial systems and transportation? Seems like a
Wow.
big transfer.
Yeah, not really, because like cryptos was at the time, like in 2014, it wasn't so big. It wasn't big business. It was more hobby like. It was like experimental. So it was just a bunch of people that were, developing new things. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I really rolled into it like, hey, I have some spare time, and you can play video games or you can do some coding and maybe make something cool.
So you forego the video games.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Um, what was the draw for Dogecoin versus the other millions of options you had out there?
100% like the community, people that are enthusiastic about using it, um, getting getting actual usage and getting actual feedback. So I created some stuff for other coins, like something stupid like a paper wallet generator, things like that. But it didn't see much usage and there wasn't much going on. Whereas on Dogecoin, there was like this drive and people really want to use it and people have like funny ideas. And there was just a lot of energy in the community, and that was mostly Reddit at the time. And yeah, that was just great. Like it was great to develop something and see it being used without
You
without all the puritanism that you had on Bitcoin, basically.
can you explain usage versus adoption? Like obviously they're different, right? In the way you speak about them. Like you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
so adoption is basically like you already have something, right? And then like I have a business, so I can adapt Dogecoin into my business, or even at a bigger scale, like I have I have a life and I adapt Dogecoin into my life. Like there's actual people doing that. Uh, I'm sure, like you know, um, it becomes a part of something that already exists, and usage is simply like um, people people that can use Dogecoin for something and want to use it for something like the actual interaction of spending, right?
Right.
So, um, for example, when back in the day on Reddit, you could like give somebody an upvote for their story, but that's like such a small thing, and maybe you'll get a million upvotes. That's cool, but it gave much more meaning, and it gave people really a feeling of like belonging and happiness when you gave them a tip in Dogecoin. So yeah, and then people wouldn't like really hoard it, but they would just put it out there and say, hey, I just got 1,000 Doge tip, so I will tip somebody else, 1,000, or I'll tip two people 500, and it would just move. It would just be used to make other people, feel good, basically. Like, hey, you said something nice, let me give you a tip.
Yeah, that's so much better than like the upvote is, one little dopamine hit, and then the award system always felt really good, right? When you got like Reddit gold. But getting a
Yeah.
Dogecoin tip on Reddit it's super rare now. People don't really do that anymore. At least I've noticed. Not on our Dogecoin, but it certainly happens. But it's so rare; it feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the positive thing about it. Like that was the thing. Like, yeah, you can downvote a post, but you can't, down Doge someone.
Yeah,
So
take some Doge
it's
from them.
like forced. It's forced positivity. So it's
That's
cool.
true. That's a good point. What were so you were talking about the early community and crazy ideas and that initial draw. What were some of those unique usage and adoption ideas that people had back then?
I'm not so sure if it was unique. It was just that people were doing it, and I think that's the power of Dogecoin. Like a lot of people are always talking about you can do this, you can do that, and in Dogecoin we just did it, and that's the difference.
Do you feel like that still goes on today?
In some cases, yeah, absolutely. I think some of that power is still going on. I think there's a lot broader vision right now. Like back then, it was all just a joke, and it's much more serious nowadays. But you can still just do it, like, and you see people doing it, and that's cool.
What would you say today? Obviously there's silly ideas that people do and then you can just do whatever, but what would you say today would be the most efficient way or the best way to utilize Doge to the broader community?
spend it.
Just spend it.
Like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you like spend it, tip it to people, give it like, I think the best way is to make somebody happy with it when they least expect it, and you know, be generous. Like, don't be cheap.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the hodl culture that kind of came through in that, but I guess the reason why I'm asking is like part of it's kind of hard, I think. Well, I mean, we can kind of jump into that hodl culture. So there's a lot of options to be able to send it and tip it, and in my experience, I just bought a monitor or a docking station from Newegg. That felt really, really cool to be able to do that with my Doge. But other than that, I've not spent it in a lot of places. And as far as I know, like the major outlets are going to be Tesla, Newegg, as we mentioned. There's places that use BitPay, so I don't know if that necessarily counts. There's obviously back and forth on that, and then tipping. Doge, SoDoge tip, my Doge wallet, SoDoge tip on Reddit. Um, are we focusing on like the wrong ones, or is that kind of where's that gamut end, and how can we focus on all of the other areas, or what are we missing, right? It feels like it's kind of narrowed down to like those are the big platforms. So obviously everybody focuses a lot on Twitter usage. Can Twitter create a button, right? People are very excited about that. And I think it's because we think of like those being the main pillars of using it. Uh, am I missing something on that?
So I think for the Twitter community, Twitter is of course a main use case. Um, but that's like, Dogecoin is bigger than that. So I think the biggest thing, and that is actually through BitPay, was when Bitrefill started to accept Dogecoin as well. Because that means that suddenly all those different providers of either it's like gift cards, but also things like T-Mobile. I used to book my flights through Bitrefill with Dogecoin. Like things like that are insane. So you
Is
can use Doge for a lot more things than just tipping on Twitter or paying for your Twitter Blue subscription.
mm, is Bitrefill still around?
Oh yeah, and it's growing, and they're expanding on the functionality a lot. I would recommend anyone to just take a look at that. Like, I don't think that I've topped up my prepaid T-Mobile since April 2021, when they started accepting Doge. I haven't used USD for that like at all since then. I just top it up with Doge.
Hmm, that's awesome.
Mine's blown. My
I
mind's blown right now.
know, mine
It's
too.
also it's
Mhm.
it's also
But
because like if you have a debit card, there's always trouble when you want to use like an e-commerce site. You have a debit card,
mhm.
and it'll be like, yeah, debit cards are not accepted, or prepaid debit cards are not accepted, or they always have an excuse why your card in that range doesn't work. And through Bitrefill, it just always works.
I feel a slick spiel coming.
What part?
Well, just not accepting the debit cards, and always having some kind of an excuse, and it seems like this is a good
Mhm.
place to this is a good alternative, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked on other podcasts about, what those transaction fees are, how much off the top they skim. So, I mean, that seems
Yeah.
like I'm definitely going to
My
check that
mind's
out. So
like
it's is it bitrefill.com?
Yeah.
it makes me wonder. It's like how much time, what I mean? I mean, everybody's like, hey, we want mass adoption. I want to pay for my McDouble like tomorrow with Dogecoin, and then I go back to like the scaling and the things that we'll dive into down the road here, and it's like, you know, we ready for that? Are we focusing on the wrong areas, right? Are there more areas where we can use it and showcase that the utility that's already there? Because obviously the utility is what's kept us, for the most part, above 5 cents in this bear market. So obviously the utility's there, but there's not a lot of people out there showcasing it. So that's why I wanted to talk about the usage versus the adoption, because can the network handle McDonald's tomorrow?
Sure. Sure, because McDonald's will still accept fiat payments. I mean, McDonald's not going to say, sorry, no dollars. So you will not have 100% of the transaction volume of McDonald's on chain. You will have, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that transaction volume.
That's a really good point. That's a really good way to look at it.
And it will not boom in one moment, because it will not be the only payment option.
Right.
And if I were McDonald's, I would not say, hey, I just accept Dogecoin, even though from a Doge maxi idea, that's of course the best possible thing. But what McDonald's will say is, hey, we're starting to accept multiple things, because they're like, you're not going to accept Dogecoin and then not accept Bitcoin. That's stupid. Or Litecoin.
Right.
So say Twitter comes out with crypto tipping for, oh, I don't know, a Real Sheeb's meme cast. They're gonna have other means of doing that, and there's gonna be a whole, kind of micro ecosystem of other platforms getting their own kinds of tips. It's not gonna necessarily, what you're saying, from what I'm picking up, is it's not necessarily gonna blow up everything, because if McDonald's does it, it's supplemental to accepting their EBT cards today. So it's not gonna, you're not switching every single hamburger transaction over to Doge.
No. I was just talking about like the efforts from the community, right? It probably makes more sense to continue the peer-to-peer transactions, check out Bitrefill, set up a website. I know you talk a lot about, website building and that being a starting point.
Exactly. So instead of trying to convince a big corporation to do something, why don't you convince yourself first and look how you can get a little income stream in Doge, rather than just having to go to Coinbase every other day and buy it. Because that's I think, like, you wanna earn it. You wanna have income in Doge as well. You don't wanna just have your fiat income from your day job and then go to that exchange every time. It's not needed.
You just described my 2022 and 2021 life. So, okay, so on this topic, because there's a lot of mixed opinions, right, on how much effort should be put towards focusing on brands, focusing on adoption or education. What are the right areas that we should be focusing on? And are you finding like misleading takes that stand out to you that might have surfaced in this last year or two?
Well, yeah, a lot. I think that because it's crypto and everybody tells each other that if you invest in crypto, you're going to be really rich, there's a lot of misleading information out there. I don't think that utility is going to like make big price jumps, especially because utility doesn't benefit from that. Like, if you're a merchant, you want the medium of exchange to be a little bit stable so that you don't have to change your price every day.
Right.
So I think there's incompatibility with like the we're all going to be rich narrative and the let's adopt as much as we can narrative. I think those are two different things. And I don't think Dogecoin, like in Dogecoin, it wasn't meant to make people rich. It doesn't have like the design for that either.
The math
So
isn't
yeah,
mathing.
like exactly, the math isn't mathing, because one of the things that happens in Dogecoin is like we subsidize every block, right? So because of that, if you're holding Dogecoin, you're basically paying for the security. Not so much when you're sending a transaction, because the transaction fees are, almost nothing. And every time when we talk to people about that, everybody's always saying like, look, transaction fees should stay low. Everybody says that. It doesn't matter who I talk to. So that means that, the security has to come from somewhere. And in this case, it comes from subsidy. It's funny because it came into Dogecoin as a bug. It wasn't meant to be that way, but we have this continuous issuance of 10,000 Doge for each block. And we have that since the first block. Like, it's been higher, but the algorithm has always had this point where it would do the 10,000 Doge per block. Somebody found that like a couple of days after her launch, that it was a bug. Then there was a discussion, and a lot of people that are like big names in crypto actually are in that thread. And the conclusion was basically like, look, we're just gonna keep it how it is. Like, we're gonna keep the bug. And that's how you accidentally create a currency, because it was supposed to, like, well, the way it was set up, it wouldn't live longer than a year, basically.
I
Maybe
was
14
always
months.
I was always under the impression that that was intentional. So you're telling me that that was like a bug, the 10,000?
Yeah. Yeah, it's you can find it on GitHub. It's a fun discussion to read. There's like 100 people arguing with each other, because initially it was said the maximum amount of Dogecoin to be ever in existence is 100 billion. But that was coded into the wrong variable. So it didn't enforce it at all. And it was just going to go on and on forever at 10,000 Doge per block. And that's what we have today, because it was decided back then. I think the final decision was somewhere in January 2014, where basically the project team said, hey guys, we're just going to keep this because otherwise it will die.
Huh.
Right. And how this future world, right? Elon always talks about how our population is so small, and as if you think hundreds of years down the road, obviously you'd want population to increase. We need supply in the future. So
I know how to make it. I know how to supply population.
So
it's interesting.
yeah, so basically what you'll see is that, because the first part of Dogecoin was basically to create as many as possible as fast as possible, right? So that distribution wasn't like made to last, but because we have this ongoing emission every year, so it's currently 3.72% over, that we've issued over the past year, or I should say miners issued to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that will just decrease. But what you should realize is that we're right now at something like 138 billion Doge.
Jimmy, pull that tweet up. Pull this tweet
Yeah, I was
up.
gonna ask. So, what do I look like, Jamie? What's is this the graph that you mentioned? That you tweeted out earlier?
Yeah, so I just tweeted out two graphs. One to show you emission, which is basically the block subsidy that gets that goes to the miners, and what that means in terms of percentage. So that's the first
Let me pull it up and then
Um,
I'll share it for
and
the
yeah,
so the audience
exactly.
can see. Is it your latest? Well, I'll just look for the one that looks like a graph. Okay, so we've got oh, you've made a thread, so this is great. Um,
So it's number 3.
Number
You can
three, so
see the
10,000
impact.
fresh Doge is self-awarded by miners for each block mined, expressed as a percentage of the total supply, which means that over time the percentage lowers. This is like, I love
Exactly.
how straight line this graph is. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
this is a
because
great
that's
explanation of something that's come up many, many times over the past 2 years that I've been into it. So go ahead.
exactly. So it's not 100% straight because the block timing is not always 1 minute,
Mm,
right? So there's like a variance in the time that a block goes, and we're not always hitting the 1 minute mark. Sometimes it even can take like 7 minutes for a block to arrive. So that means that there's always a little bit less than what we projected to be emitted. That's emitted. So you see that there's a little wobble in that line going on.
hmm.
But other than that, it's like it's pretty straight because it's programmed to do that.
Right.
And it's a really straightforward thing because it just says add 10,000, add 10,000, add 10,000. And on one side, the sum is like the total sum of the circulated coins is growing. So that means that in a percentage, the line's always going down.
Right. Yeah, the
Mm.
way I've tried to kind of explain it to newcomers is like if you have $10 and you add a dollar, your your increase is 1%. But if you add another dollar, you're adding a dollar to $11. So what's one out of 11? You know, it's less. Now it's one out of 12. Now it's one
Exactly.
out of 13. So when people kind of make the misinterpretation that the supply is infinite and therefore inflation is going to always go up, it's nothing like the arbitrary printing of the United States Fed. It's not even close.
Yeah. So, and the other point is this is not inflation. So the thing that gets measured when somebody shows you an inflation figure is what can I buy for a dollar, right? Or what can I buy for a Doge? And that's not the same thing as this. And exactly, so there you see, like that's year on year the difference.
Mm,
And if you look at that chart really closely, you'll kind of see that it reflects the price and not
Yeah.
the issuance of new coins.
hmm.
Yeah, so if you look in so this chart is for 1 year. It starts in January 2020, and what you see is that at that moment there was a huge deflation going on versus January 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you move further, so for example, when you go to June, suddenly there's a huge peak in inflation in 2020. Why? Because in 2021 around like from April to June, there was this huge peak going on in the price. So it basically lags the price by a year. Um, because this, what you're looking at, this is the 2022 year on year inflation. And it's because there was much less volatility in 2022. You basically see the same peaks that you got in the
Yeah.
price in 2021.
Yeah. Almost identical.
Yeah, because so, and that's also why, like, yeah, if you bought Doge in April 2021 and you want to spend it in April 2022, then everything is going to be 4 times as expensive. Why? Because the price went down 4 times.
Mm,
Yep. Yep. Which is why people tip less during a down market, right? Because
Mm,
money's tight, right? You can tip people more Doge, but it's less or you know what I mean, right? Am I saying that
I,
right?
I, I think that people stopped tipping when it became worth something.
mm-hmm.
Like the difference between January 2021 and January 2022. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big difference. And there is a people were much more generous with their Doge before that. Why? Because it was worth a lot less in USD.
Right. If Doge is
Yeah.
10 cents, are you going to tip 100 Doge? And if Doge is $1, are you going to still tip 100 Doge? Most people, not so much. By the way, real quickly, I see Justin Cerny just joined the chat on the stream, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Holden and let him know that we're pulling for him. We love you.
That kid's strong.
Yeah.
He's been through a lot.
Yeah. So I want to take a couple steps backward in time here, to when you were joining the Dogecoin quote unquote movement. You quit your job, your day-to-day job, and you decided to work full-time on Dogecoin coding. What made you so confident?
I did that twice.
You did that twice? Okay. I thought it was once.
Yeah. No, I did it twice.
So, obviously that shows your passion for the actual currency, but what made you so confident in Dogecoin that you were willing to drop your job for it?
It's just because I don't care. No, it's like if you want to do something, you really have to focus. So the first time I did it was in 2014, when we saw that the network was really struggling. We needed to do something about it. So I quit my job basically to work on integrating the merge mining. I didn't code all of that myself. Somebody who's never contributed anything to Dogecoin before just did a pull request out of nothing, but he did it on the wrong version. So I took that and I quit my job at the time, and I said okay, I'm just gonna focus on this, because if you have a day job and you're gonna have that entire day job all day, and then in the evening you'll come there, you can't focus as sharp as when you just say, okay, we're just gonna wake up, look at Dogecoin and fix it. So it took like 2 weeks to do the integration. I did a lot of testing together with Max, one of the former maintainers of Dogecoin Core. We spent a lot of time. Then Ross came over it and he fixed all my mistakes, because I used to make a lot of them. I still do, by the way. And then basically we got that going, but someone, yeah, absolutely. So
I'm just kidding.
No, but nobody's infallible. All code should always be reviewed, especially when it's about storing people's money and keeping it safe.
Mm-hmm.
You can't slack on that. But anyway, so we did that, and it was actually, it was worth my time. And while I was doing that, I already got a new job lined up. So after a month and a half or something, I just was like, okay, it's done, So I just took a break for 1.5 months, and that was that.
And then your break turned into a year.
No. So that was, and then I just went back to work, right? So I just took a day job again and I did things. Then late 2016, I started getting a little bit demotivated because we couldn't get stuff done. So I had the feeling there wasn't enough interest from anywhere, not in the community, not in the wild, not from the other developers either, and myself also. Everything felt a little bit quirky, so I decided, okay, I'll just take a step back. And after a year, I thought that would be permanent. Then come 2019, there was a release and some people were telling me hey, something's wrong. I was like, okay, not my problem. Mm-hmm. Then in 2020, yeah, all the way until 2020, I got more people telling me stuff hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And I just started a new company, and I wanted to build some products on top of Dogecoin and also on top of Bitcoin. But I was like, let's do Dogecoin first, because it's a great testing ground to just, if it works on Dogecoin, it will work on Bitcoin too. So I was trying that, and I ran into the same problems that people were telling me. So then I was like, okay, I have to do something with Dogecoin Core, which I didn't want to do. Yeah, because I was like, okay, I let it pass, but yeah, it didn't go full. So for like 6 months, I tried doing it on the side. It didn't work out. Then January 10th, 2021, I said, okay, this is it. I just gonna have to reserve the time again and do it. And back then I thought like, okay, it's gonna be 3 months, maybe a year. So I did a board meeting with my startup and we were like, okay, let's pause just for a while. Let me fix this so that we also have like an ecosystem to build upon. Because it was kind of hard to build stuff on top of Dogecoin back then. Things wouldn't sync. It would take forever. So and then, you know, all the Wall Street bet stuff happened and price boom and
Yep.
Elon and that was like within 10 days after I made that decision. So yeah, then I had a lot of work.
Out of the
suddenly.
frying pan and into the fire.
Right.
Yeah. So after the first year, I was like, okay, I need to do more because I knew there were still a lot of things that we needed to fix. And so I did it all the way until this year, January 10th. So that's like, 2 weeks ago. And now I'm like, okay, the last year I couldn't get the momentum anymore. So it makes no sense to try and do this full time. So I'm just doing for now, for like a couple of months. I'm going to do some stuff on the side, see what I can do. But yeah, it's been the first year was really productive. The second year, not so much. But I think we'll get there. Like, I think it helped. So I'm happy about that.
Do you feel like trying to make ancillary type products or supplemental products for Doge is somewhat of an on-ramp to the desire to work for Core, at least for you? Maybe like you wanted to make certain products and certain certain tools, and because they weren't working properly, you had to go into Core and see if there was a way you can update that, and maybe it initiates some thoughts of like, this would be a way to make this kind of integration work with my kind of product. But then you get sucked into Core and then you're like, oh, there's all kinds of other stuff I can work on here. Is that kind of like, is it an on ramp for that, or is that not
No, I don't
allowed?
think so. I think for most people, for most people, it's you run into a problem, like a single one. You propose a fix, or sometimes you just file an issue and then hopefully somebody picks it up. And then that's that. And sometimes you see people coming back who run into a new issue later on. And I would say that's maybe 20% of the contributions that we get. And the other 80% is just people want to help, people that are enthusiastic about Dogecoin, that want to contribute, want to do something. And for me personally, because I had my maintainer rights still, I also felt a lot of responsibility. Also because we were doing AuxPoW at the time, we create the merge mining. It worked, so it didn't die, which was great. But then, then there is something out there that is, keeping people's money and people's assets safe, or supposed to, and that's supposed to work then. So I feel a lot of responsibility. Like, okay, you helped enabling that. So then you also got to see it through, and you got to make sure that it works. And then when it doesn't, yeah, you got to, do some work for it.
Can you explain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Slick's thinking the same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Slick.
was just getting ready to go there. How does merge mining, like, why is it there? What does it do? Like, can you explain merge mining to us?
So mining is basically, you have either a computer or dedicated machine, and it basically crunches a bunch of numbers according to a specific algorithm. Yeah, so you can have an algorithm that says A plus B is C, and we just want to know C. And you have another algorithm that says A times B is C, so that's not compatible. So you cannot make the same software or hardware do that same thing. So that's, for example, the difference between Dogecoin and Bitcoin. Bitcoin uses a simple hash, whereas Dogecoin uses S-script. So Dogecoin had the same algorithm as Litecoin and a bunch of others. And because of that, the same hardware can be used for both, but you can only mine one coin at once under normal circumstances. And miners have to make a choice. But wherever the majority is means that everybody else is at risk, because those miners can say, hey, we're going to screw with that chain, or we put our hash rate for rent. There are actually sites for that already since 2014, and people put it for rent, and then what basically happens is you can get attacked, right? So suddenly somebody can have 50% of the hash power because 5% of the hash power was taken from Litecoin, and now we're in trouble. At the same time, there were a bunch of quirks in the Dogecoin design that were actually put there for purpose, like random rewards. And then we tried to fix that with something that was slowly making every block take longer, but also react really heavy if somebody put on extra hash power. So then, there were pools that would put in some hash power, move out, wait for everybody else to struggle, and then come in again and take some profit. And that's how they were maximizing their profit all the time. And it was slowing down the chain. So you don't want to wait 10 minutes for your block confirmation. Like, that's too long on Dogecoin when you're expecting it within 1 minute. So what we tried to do was find a way to do that. And I talked with a lot of people, and the only thing that was there at the time was to merge mine with Litecoin, and it made sense. And we needed a solution at some point. Like, we saw it deteriorating. So what it basically does is, on Dogecoin, you say, I'm going to make a block on another chain. Doesn't matter which one, but most of the time it will be Litecoin, because that has always been the dominant chain. So you say, okay, I'm going to make a block on another chain. Then you make the block on the other chain, and you include some of the proof that this was also for a Dogecoin block into that other block. So the Litecoin blocks have some evidence that there was some Dogecoin mining going on as well. Mm-hmm. And then you take that proof from the other chain and you add it to the proof on Dogecoin. Not all the transactions, but just like the tiniest form of the proof. And then what you say is like, okay, now we have a merge mine block. So they get the rewards on Litecoin and they get the rewards on Dogecoin for just doing it once. What that does is it basically takes all the miners, it focuses it on both the chains instead of just one. And that worked pretty well.
So because they're compatible.
Because they are compatible, yeah. So as long as they're compatible, this can work. If one of the two changes, it's going to be much harder to make it compatible.
So that's how you'd pretty much define AuxPoW as like block mine compatibility.
Sharing, basically. So you share the proof. So what Dogecoin says is, as long as you have proof that you announced you were going to do this on another chain before, and then include the thing that we give you on the other chain, then we can verify that you're being honest.
Yep.
It's pretty neat. It's very technical, by the way. So I struggle to explain it in layman's terms, but What it basically does is it reuses the hash power from another chain and accepts it as our own and pays out the subsidy to whoever created that block, because a block is a block. Doesn't matter how you can prove that you did the work as long as you did it.
So if you're researching blockchain and you're kind of like looking at transactions, is there a chance that you'll stumble across a Litecoin transaction?
No, never, because the transactions stay on a separate chain. So it's really just the top level. Like, what it basically does is everything gets aggregated. So if you have a long list with transactions, see it as a long list of numbers, and if you add all of them together, you get one number in the end. And because of some cryptographic proofs, we only need the final number, and we can still see that, hey, you got you did it in the right way, and there is some Dogecoin stuff in there.
Right. So it still validates in the long run.
Oh, everything is validated. Like, there, it's not something that you can just say, oh, I make up some stuff and then it will be fine,
Right.
because it won't.
Right. That's really interesting. We've been talking a lot. We've been finding ourselves crossing paths more and more with the Litecoin community. And so far, the interactions I've had have all been very, very positive. They seem like a really cool community, and I feel like I've only done a disservice to myself not having connected with them sooner. But I would say, as Dogecoin community interacts with other communities, it's nothing like what I've seen with the Litecoin community. It's like there's something special there. Why do you think that is? Is it just because of the merge mining, or is it because there's a lot of cross pollination between characters and developers?
I think a little. I think a little bit of both, and I think in general, Litecoiners have always been like more open. Like, they ran into the same wall on like the Bitcoin Reddits and the Bitcoin Twitter communities that the Dogecoin people did. So they understand. Like, we all get called shitcoiners, or whatever term they make up for us nowadays. And I mean, okay, that's fine. That's the Bitcoin vision, but the Litecoin vision is a little bit more inclusive. So, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people there. The entire idea of the merge mining was brought up by Charlie Lee. Yeah, he's like, he actually wanted to help, and that set also a great example for a lot of people.
Wow.
Like, it was clear that Litecoin, that, like, if we were going to compete, Litecoin was going to win. That was, especially when we started talking about this, that was becoming really clear. So he didn't have to do that. He could just let Dogecoin die, right? Instead, he proposed it first, then somebody else proposed the code. We integrated it between the maintainers, and then Charlie actually went to the mining pools and was like, "Look, just add it because you get some extra income. It's cool, it's nice," and people actually did that. So yeah, there's like a tight bond there, and it's cool. I
Wow.
think it's amazing.
What a legend.
So it's essentially, since this has happened, right? A lot of misconceptions about the emissions and FUD and stuff like that on Twitter. But to properly assess the emission footprint, the things you were saying the other day were you have to measure both Litecoin and Dogecoin simultaneously.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So if you look at, like, people are talking about carbon footprints and things like that. First off, I still don't know where all the numbers come from. So no one has been able to explain to me, like, hey, this is how we got to number X for Dogecoin or Litecoin or Bitcoin, right? So that it's all guesstimates. But even if they're true, as soon as somebody splits up Dogecoin and Litecoin, that really doesn't make much sense, because you're anyway going to mine Dogecoin if you're mining Litecoin, and vice versa, because they both give a significant contribution to your income. So you always have to check it like across them. It makes no sense to separate them out. Not from a mining perspective. And that means that Doge adds, like, it used to be a little, but nowadays it's a lot of income for the miners, for not all that many transactions. Litecoin adds a lot of transactions for, relatively less subsidy and less hash power. So like it evens each other out. And I think you should just assess the whole and
Yeah.
not each individually, because there's no it is not like, hey, my miner was mining Litecoin right now, and oh, now it's doing Dogecoin. No, it was doing both at the same time, all the time.
The emissions take sounds like it's pretty disingenuous.
I think, people want to show the statistics that proves their point more than, prove that the statistics are necessarily correct.
Right.
Weird how that's
It's always
done.
fun to do. We've got a lot more questions, and I know you said we've got a limited time with you. How are you doing on the? How's your how are your energy levels? You got 6 Red
Oh,
Bulls that you've gone through.
exactly. So, I can live. So ask away. I'm good.
I did want to make sure that we had time to talk about very.engineer. I've brought it up in other episodes. I've been simping about it for a while now. The minute I saw like the concept of what it was. Tell us about it.
Mhm.
What is it?
Okay. So one of the things that like I want to say offends me, but it doesn't really. But like one of the things that irritates me is that a lot of people ask others to do something for them. Like, hey, I want this and this and this. Do it. Like the idea on its own is like pushing people. Like, hey, I have a great idea. I have no code. I don't know how to do it, but I have this great idea, and you should absolutely do it. And they pitch you an idea. There's of course not enough coders at all, right?
Right.
So one of the things that I want to do is like show that as a community you can actually make stuff happen. And because it's not all about who codes something on Dogecoin Core. Like Dogecoin Core is supposed to be the most boring thing ever. It manages a protocol. Like, who cares? So yeah, no, seriously. But then around that, you can build all the cool stuff, because Dogecoin Core in itself is not cool. But you can build like a miner, and you can build that miner, based on or fully powered by solar panels, or I don't care, wind power, whatever you want, right? And you can reuse the heat. And there's a million ideas out there of people that have those ideas. Then there's like a very small group of people that actually have done it for themselves, just because they were curious about it. And then there's a gap. Like, it doesn't go from all these people that share that same idea to all these people that did it for themselves, but then there's nothing coming out of that. And I think that if we change our own mindset a little bit to collaborate instead of tell other people what to do, and do that in a format where we learn to do stuff together it can be beautiful, because I've seen a lot of places where people work together and give 200% just because it's fun to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit my idea. So the initial idea that I had was, this was triggered by everybody talking about mining is so polluting, and there's only one company that makes ASICs, and which we don't know, that's just a sentiment. So if you want to break with that, you have to do something about it. And you got to do something about it with a community. Then if the community among themselves thinks that this is a problem, then let's solve it, and let's do it step by step. And who knows which direction it's going to take? We don't know that. And instead of always hypothesizing about solutions, maybe it's better to evolve a solution and get there together. And that's what I want to achieve with that.
So this is a
Trying to
place
find the doers.
this is a place to find solutions to problems, not create problems to have solutions thrown at.
Yeah, and create it together. So in an open fashion, right? Like I can have a great idea. I can write down a summary, post it somewhere, and say, "Hey, this is a great idea." No one's going to do anything with that. But if we walk like step by step, if we walk through that together, we will come to the point where we'll say, "Hey, this is cool, this is good, it's documented." Other people will pick that up. Sometimes people who weren't in your little chat session, just because you published it, and because you document it step by step. And what do we have to lose?
Right.
Like we can all focus on big companies and let big companies tell us, like, okay, we will spend 20,000 engineering hours on something, and then we'll sell you something for $500 a pop, mass produce it later. If everything's successful, we'll be rich, you'll be poor. Or we can just do it together. And I think that's something that's a little bit missing in our community, because it's always driven by the same people, right? Whereas everybody has power, everybody has ideas, power to investigate. If you can go online and educate yourself on things, you can also like evolve those ideas. And I think we should have some open communication about that.
In like a fully functional work environment.
No, yeah, but don't see it as work. See it as a fully
Oh, I know.
functional, fun environment.
Right.
Yeah, like when you have a good job, right? Like I love my job. I love the people I work with. Like I love going in every day, right? It's the culture or the atmosphere you're trying to create, the collaborative. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
and don't look at it as an everyday thing. Look at it as hey, there's like people sitting together and in a weekend on a, I don't know, on a Teams chat or something.
Yeah, it's like today when you go into work and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna have a scrum session," and you're like dreading it and you don't want to, and it kind of sucks the fun out of like what it is that would be fun collaboration versus like when you were a kid and your teacher would say, "Hey, we're gonna do brainstorming. Everybody get in your groups, and I'm gonna give you each a task or whatever." Like, do you remember when you would do that and like at a young age and they were trying to teach, early collaboration, but it was fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. I feel like that's a good segue into the question that I sent you earlier, which was, what are the top three things you think non-devs should know about Doge?
Okay. So first thing is, Dogecoin is a 100% free protocol. So nobody owns it. Nobody can tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to listen to anyone. Also not to me. Also not to Jimmy. Don't
What
do
about
it.
Salty?
Don't listen to Salty either. Don't listen to anyone. No, I mean, so you can listen to people, but you don't have to follow orders. You don't have to do what anyone says, right? Like, just try to use people's knowledge to help you further with what you want to do, but never ask for permission on anything because you don't need to.
Right.
I was just joking about Salty. He's always one that's willing to help, right? So
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think there's tons of people that are always willing to help. Like, I think that's good. Yeah. But you don't have to do what somebody tells you. Like, if I tell you, like, I don't think it's smart, well, if you disagree with me, then you can do it anyway. I don't care. Like, that's what it's made for. So it's all made for, it secures a really tiny set of things very strictly. And then beyond that, you can do whatever you want.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Because what I've
No,
noticed
exactly.
is it's people, people can be a little intimidating, and maybe it's just, it's online personas, and you don't get to, like, what we've learned about running this show is everyone we've gotten to know, you get to know a side of them where you're like, wow, this is a different person than the person that I created, this like straw man that I created behind the profile picture. And as you get to know them, you realize like how human each person is. And that same thing, that same principle applies when it comes time to ask for help. And there's so many people that I probably would have been intimidated a year or two ago to ask for help. And I come to find they're extremely giving in their knowledge. And so far, every one of them has been on the show. But it is always a big surprise. So, I mean, I would add to that and say, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Exactly. And for me also, like, I don't mind working with anyone as long as someone's honest. Like, I don't care. Like, even if you think that you're asking a dumb question, ask it anyway.
I got a lot of those.
Those are all I have.
Well, I
So,
mean,
obviously the collaborative side and, the helpfulness of working together and just not needing to ask for permission. That's one. That only counts as one. What other things non-devs should know?
so the protocol really only protects keys and main chain transactions. So it, not your keys, not your coin is really a thing. It means that as soon as you deviate from that like basic thing, either you put your money on exchange, you put it on a bridge, doesn't matter. There are then third parties in there. It is designed to not have that. However, it doesn't mean that the third party is evil, but you're also not protected by the software anymore. Yeah, so the protocol doesn't protect you when somebody else manages your Doge. And I think that's important to know.
Like a whole nother element to the risk chart that we're now learning, right? The exchange risk, right? There's market risk, there's tax risk, there's all these different types of risk. And a lot of people were all about the proof of assets, right? But there were no proof of liabilities. So, and when some of these exchanges went solvent, now we're seeing the exchange risk, which what you're saying is you don't own your keys, you don't own your crypto, you're subject to that exchange risk.
Exactly. So that's like counterparty risk. So in the protocol, the only counterparty is the protocol, right? So, and even if it forks tomorrow and somebody says, hey, everything will change, it doesn't matter because this version of the protocol can always survive as long as there's people that are willing to, or in this case, mine it. So it's basically you have the protocol and that's what protects you, and that's the only condition to the security of your coin. safe quantum mechanics, maybe like the quantum computing stuff that's going on. We will need to do something with that in the future. But apart from that, it's basically a commitment from you to the protocol and the protocol to you. And that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
kidding. You don't
3.
have to do a third one
No,
if
no,
you
no.
don't want.
No,
Those 2 are
that's okay.
pretty important.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that the third one is make sure that you know if somebody claims that, for example, hey, I have this wallet and it's secure, make sure that you can verify that. Yeah. So there's this Bitcoin statement that is don't trust, verify. It's very important. I would recommend anyone to, without naming coins, just have a conversation with like knowledgeable Bitcoin people sometimes, because you do need to verify the claims. This is crypto. It's really easy to scam someone. So the last thing you want to do is trust someone in their claims.
Yeah, I mean,
The same goes for an exchange. Like everybody was trusting, the guy in the Bahamas.
We'll give you 50%. You just need to stake on our platform.
yeah, I mean,
So
your stories of like behind the history of Dogecoin and what kind of malicious attempts were made, and AuxPoW coming in to kind of help out with that, and how these code contributions helped keep Doge from dying, really. It's crazy like how smart people can be and how sinister people can be to match. If there's a hole, someone wants to find it and they want to exploit it, which is why there's always attacks.
well, that's because Dogecoin is money, right? So whenever there's money and there's an exploit, you can bet on that it's gonna be abused.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I mean, if we were talking about something different, like we were just talking about a protocol to exchange messages or something, it would be much less um, abused for gain, for greed,
Right.
than a currency is.
I mean, even if it was really isolated and very niche, you would still have that. I mean, think of
Yeah,
like the gaming environments and gaming communities where people, have their own little game currency and they're doing trades or whatever, and then someone gets quote unquote scammed out of something, and then they start swatting people's houses. I mean, people get mad even if it's not money.
exactly.
It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
So while we're talking about non-devs and what you think they should know, we've got an audience that in this Twitter circle, this Twitter realm of people who all are very passionate about Dogecoin, and everybody's got big ideas. Obviously, very.engineer is a great place to start, but what are other ways? What's the best place to start if you want to contribute to Dogecoin, whether it's to the ecosystem, through the community, or just through contributing to the currency itself? What's the best place to start if you don't know where to begin?
If you're not a coder, learn how to build a website, like for real, and first learn how to, like, build a website, and then learn how to build a website and maybe integrate Doge in it or accept Doge on it or something like that. So you want to have something that you can quickly publish, that you can get quick feedback on. You don't want to be stuck in a process that takes you months to complete, and then you get your first feedback. Um, I wouldn't recommend anyone like to just go into Dogecoin Core and say, hey, let's code some C++. That's really hard. And plus, you'll get someone like me who will have like a million nitty comments on what you're doing. I mean, I'm sure Jimmy realizes that now.
It's Dogecoin.conf.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like Dogecoin Core needs to have rather high quality standards. So that's not an ideal place to begin, especially if you're not familiar with coding, right? So if you want to code, really learn to build a website or like a web app on a phone, something like that, something that can give you quick results and make sure that the learning curve isn't like super steep.
Right. And if you're not interested in the coding, your brain just doesn't work that way, but you feel like, hey, I want to do something. Like what can I do to
Just
add?
just have fun, like do a podcast. I mean, for real, like
Hello,
it
Patrick.
doesn't. I didn't mean to give you a lot of competition here or something, but
Oh,
um,
wait a second. Never mind. Don't start one.
so um, just have fun. Like I think that's the most important thing. Just have fun and talk to people if you really want um, Doge to grow and you really want to have adoption for Dogecoin. Talk to people about it. Like I talk to a lot of crypto people and I talk to a lot of Dogecoin people and I talk to a lot of people outside of any crypto about Dogecoin because people always ask you what do you do for a living. Um, and yeah, it's like there's you can just talk to people about it and it doesn't have to be a pitch. Just be honest. Just have fun.
Right.
Yeah, actually,
And if you wanna and like I said in the beginning, right? Like if you wanna um, if you want adoption to grow, the first thing to start with is you, not Amazon or McDonald's. First person who should accept Doge is you, and then after that we can talk about everybody else.
Mm.
you almost can't
Hot
go
tickety
to a
take.
small business. Almost can't go to a small business and preach what it's like to accept Dogecoin without going through the
Ah,
rigmarole, the taxing, and all the other things that come with it, right?
exactly. So
Try
I
it
think the
before you
best
buy
way to
it.
do it, exactly. Yep.
Or as people in my
And
industry say, we need to eat our own dog food. I hate that saying.
Eat our own
It's fun.
what?
Eat our own dog food.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of true in this case. I just don't like that phrase.
Mhm.
You recently shared a tweet about Raspberry Pi Mini, like a mini node.
mhm.
There's obviously a lot of ideas that pop up through Twitter feeds. Dogecoin, our Dogecoin dev, there's a lot of people that pitch ideas on there. Whether they're related or not, or completely spam, is another story. But there are a lot of ideas. Are there any that you've come across that you're particularly excited about or supportive of? I also saw TD Whisperer, shout out to them for their tip jar that they're talking about making for their website, where it just makes a QR code generator. And any other ideas like that that you are particularly supportive of or excited about or anything?
Mm, so that's really hard. It's really hard for me to name something because I generally distrust ideas that don't have any realization because that's 99%, right? Like 99% of ideas do not get realized.
Mhm.
So
We're talking about ideas or NFTs.
both,
I'm just kidding.
non-fungible ideas. So the problem with that really is like no, but there's a lot of stuff that people had a great idea. They talk about it for 5 minutes and then it's gone. Um, So it's better if you see some code, if you see someone working on it, or someone saying like, "Hey, I did this and this and this already, but now I'm stuck." And at that point, I don't really mind. Like, I will honestly tell somebody if it's a bad idea. If it's a good idea, but it needs some extra considerations, I will tell people that as well. Like, hey, there's a risk here, there's a risk there. Doesn't mean you can't go on without fixing the risk, but you need to know about it, and then make your decision. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. It doesn't really matter for me as long as it's honest. I think that's my only criteria. Like if somebody comes to me, has this great idea, so that 2 months later they can do a token launch and make billions for themselves, or at least they think they will. They won't, but that's what they think. And then yeah, that's. I also get a lot of those.
Yeah, you've been around the
For
block.
me, that's yeah, and for me, that's like, look, it's obvious what you're trying to do here, and you're not just making something cool. You're doing it with a ulterior motive. So okay,
Yeah. I think the community is getting better at sniffing some of that stuff out. I mean, you see a lot of that in Twitter Spaces. Rando pops up to speaker and is like, "Hey, I just want a real quick, shameless shill." But then it's like, hold on, like let's dissect exactly what's going on here. Oh, okay, this is multi-level marketing again. But here's maybe a tougher question. How do you marry that up with your very.engineer idea? As someone who wants to see realization and likes to see that first line of code to show someone's putting out their effort, but your very.engineer is kind of implying I don't even know where to begin, but I've got a big idea and I want to almost crowdsource the idea part.
so what my intention with Ferry Engineer is to basically create that process where you do that transparently, and I think that's the solution. Like the solution to ulterior motives is transparency. Because if things are transparent, then it becomes clear. People can check it. People that you would attract, that would work with you on it, will see like, hey, what you're really doing here is issuing a token, or what you're really doing here is trying to own something at the cost of the community, things like that. So that will become clear. The greater the transparency, the lower the risk, right?
That's really interesting. And yeah, it's really hard to mask all that stuff if you're coming in and building it all from the ground up in public together. So now it's really hard to hide ulterior
Exactly,
motives.
and you'll know when they come into play, because when people ask questions and they don't get answered. That's when you say, hey, why aren't these questions being answered? Because we're working on something transparently, so there are no secrets. So everything can just be answered.
So this would be a platform for that. Are you trying to design it in a way that's similar to GitHub, or is it going to be its own platform, or is it going to be kind of an on-ramp
just
onto a
use
place like GitHub?
Yeah, so you'll just use GitHub. So what I really want to do is I really want to prove a point, kind of, and get through the success of small projects with collaboration on them. And the reason why I didn't start it yet is I need to have the process really clear so that you can actually support that transparency, right? And it's hard to start, but I want to kick it off. I think I want to kick it off in February. Try to hold me to that. and we'll just have to see where we end up. But if people are working on stuff, they're sharing ideas, notes, solutions, because for a big idea, you'll have 200 problems and 200 solutions. And if you're doing that with a group, you'll get much better solutions than when you're doing it on your own. And I think that will add value to people that honestly have like a great idea, not looking to, become a trillionaire of it, but just want to do something for fun. And I think that's the other part. Like, this is not meant to be like a big business or something. Like, no, it's just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know people that have fun in making, electrical schematics. I know people that have fun in like myself, that have fun in laying out software
Right.
and designing that and writing it, testing it. There maybe you'll have a project and you want to 3D print something, and you'll have plenty of people in the community that will say, hey, this is cool, want to help. And that's the idea behind it. Like, there's so many different interests. If you take everybody's hobby and you all put 1 hour together, you can make beautiful things. That's what I think. But I have to prove that.
Right. I mean, it's not a pipe dream, but it's definitely like it's a dream, because it's like it's hard to give an idea to somebody else and have them realize that idea with their skills unless they're excited about it. So if you have a place where it kind of attracts the right people, so you want to be able to attract developers and engineers and people who actually are seeking out opportunities to work on something, knowing that maybe they're not going to get anything in return, but it's something that excites them. And if they get to that point, you're going to go miles and miles further.
Exactly.
Kind of going through that without saying too much. I mean, you're a really good example of what collaboration looks like. Like, a lot of it's finding people to trust. I mean, trust is a huge part. People that you can trust that are have the same common goal and are working towards that.
Don't trust. Verify.
Verify. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think, even Salty is a good example, right? I mean, the guy got a bunch of Doge and he actually did all the legwork to get it back. I mean, that guy's verified his trust, to me, right? It's somebody I could trust, right?
Yeah, so I think that also when you have transparent processes and you just share everything, trust is not so much of an issue because it is transparent. So you can see what's there. Somebody goes out claiming stuff, they can back it up because the information is already out there. And if they don't, you can just ask them about it. And then you come back to ask you a question, you don't give an answer. Okay. And apparently you don't want me to know.
Yep.
So you're known for being kind of an anti-cult of personality type of person, very straight shooter. You're very upfront about that. I mean, you say it in your own Reddit posts, which is why I feel like I'm okay saying that. Do you see that as a problem or a risk inside the Dogecoin community, or really any crypto community?
Yeah, I think any crypto community and the Doge community, especially because everything's really hype driven in Dogecoin. It always has been. It won't change. And with that comes like a risk that people sit back, have trust in others to solve their problems, be, let's say, be vulnerable to people abusing that. And it's really cool that, I like you, you like me. I will tell everybody how cool you are, and you will do it back to me, and we will do that a million times. And now everybody's cool.
Well, thanks, Patrick.
Yeah,
Go
we
on.
can do that. I will tell you a million people, you know, how cool you are. Absolutely. But then the point is like, what have we done? All we've done is, you know, do a little popularity contest. Nothing progressed. There's no, you know, all that we've established is like a social hierarchy of who is the coolest, or you know, who has the biggest or whatever. It didn't produce anything.
Right.
and and I think it's a waste of time.
Well, it
And I
produced an
think,
inflated ego. I mean, that's nice.
yeah, okay, but it also produced probably that a lot of people will say, hey, you know, that guy is really popular, so I'll trust him, you know. And then that actually happened in the Dogecoin community. And then, you know,
And
guy
then they
turned
say
out to
they're
be
going
a
to
total
delete their
scammer.
YouTube, and then
Yeah.
they say never mind.
Yeah, and this has been a common theme in Dogecoin since the start. Like, because that's like what a scammer will thrive in an environment like that. So, you know, it doesn't help anyone. It's much better to learn to accept the content of what somebody says and verify that, than to just take it for granted just because of who said it. Like, that's like, if I say something, please, you know, double check me, challenge me if you think I say something wrong, because I can be wrong. I'm only human. And, you know, I can also have an ego. I can also, you know, have secrets. You don't know that. And
Oh, you've got
you
secrets.
should, no, everybody, I mean, everybody's got secrets. Everybody's human. Everybody's got bias. Everybody's got, you know, nobody's perfect. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I,
So,
I'll be honest, it's a vulnerability point for me because I think everybody kind of has a natural inclination to subscribe to the cult of personalities. I mean, you really want to feel like you know somebody and like them and then elevate them to the point of uh, foregoing, don't trust, verify. And that's something that has to be like a conscious decision. Like you have to actually shift your own mental paradigm to be in that state because it's you easily get susceptible to it because we do it in everyday life, so it's even easier to do. I was illustrating it this way in a conversation I think with Slick and Queen at some point, but it's like you can be married to somebody for 7 years and find out that they were a serial killer and not know it.
yeah,
Like you can know someone for a long time and not know them, and we do that with people we don't know. Like, how many people would maybe they'll tweet it out as a joke, but like, I would trust Elon with my kids. And it's like, I don't know him. I don't know him. So, why would I go that far when pen goes to paper, things go a little bit different. So, but it's a conscious
What's the
thing.
word? What's the word? Like being willfully blind
Willfully ignorant or
willfully
willfully
ignorant. Yeah.
blind. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But it's an easy thing, and I'm not saying like everybody needs to do better, but like it's a flaw that I even have. So I think it might be part of a human nature-ish kind of thing.
yeah, it could be. Um, I think that if you carefully look at how Dogecoin, but it's 100% inherited from Bitcoin, how it is constructed is that you don't need that trust in a transaction. Yeah. So, and of course, I live in that code. I live in those principles. So for me, it's much easier to say, okay, you know, I will just verify and you know, don't trust. Um, but I understand it's not an easy step to take, and it's very different from how you live your life. And you see people that question things are often put aside as, oh, you're a radical, or, your question doesn't help.
You got a tinfoil hat on.
Exactly. Like, go to the crazy group because that's where you belong.
Dinksy just said in the chat, you guys are so based, it's insane. It's the guy that started the Sheebs magazine, which I really like so far, so I hope he keeps it up. So shout out to him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like, so, I mean, I understand it's hard, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to try. And I don't think it harms. Like, if you fact check something and it turns out to be like 2% wrong, okay, fine. If you fact check someone 20 times and 20 times, you find out that they're BSing you, well, I think that's also not going to harm you, because then at least right?
Yeah. Well, some of that comes in. Well, by the way, I really want to make sure I didn't accidentally say Real Sheebs magazine. It's just Sheebs magazine. But anyway, the whole fact checking thing, to your earlier point about how we can use our biases and pull up, supportive research or graphs or whatever. When we were talking about emissions to make our own points, we can do that on our own with fact checking. In fact, we already see that with fact checking organizations, right? You can kind of have like a weighted fact check, and we might apply that to people or developers or creators or whatever within this community or others. And I think the danger in being extra vocal about those types of things is not acknowledging your own biases. So for me, it's been better to take that kind of like fact checking and just keep it internal. Like, it's for me, right? I'm fact checking for myself. I can't protect everybody. There's only so much I can do. So a lot of stuff, I'll run it by a couple other people, but for the most part, there's plenty of times where it's like, just for my own sake, my own sanity. And that tends to be a little more helpful for me in general. And and you don't have to worry about being ostracized in those circumstances. Even though
So you weren't ordered by the CIA or some secret agency to
well,
do
it
this?
was. Yes. That's what this, yeah, that's the grand reveal on episode 100. Please don't spoil it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So, Patrick, you didn't expect to already be on as long as you have.
Yeah.
So I hate to say I told you so, but here we are.
No, it's okay. Here we are. Exactly.
But yeah, I feel like Slick, unless you have, I'm sure you've got questions swirling in your head. I'd love to be able to give you a chance to ask questions that you might have, but then I also want to get a chance to do the meme of the week. We have a different way of doing it this week, and then
Let's do it.
Patrick get to his precious sleep.
I don't know if you ever sent me the actual questions, so I haven't been able to.
I did.
Yeah.
That's a you problem.
Okay.
Just kidding.
No, I think we covered most of the things that I asked a couple of the questions that I wanted to ask. I mean, we can always save more for later. I mean, I don't want this to be the last time Pat's here.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. There's plenty. I mean, I scratched off a lot of like what we wanted to ask you, and a lot of I feel like we covered a lot of what you added, Slick. So, other than that, we can come back to these maybe another time if you'd be gracious enough to come back.
Of course.
Oh, Patrick, you're gonna make me cry. Good. Okay, so we're gonna do meme of the week. This is where we, give out 420 Doge to one lucky ducky winner. So let's kick it off to that. Meme of the week. All right, so what I'm gonna do this time is I'm gonna put it on Photoshop because I don't want you to see who actually created these. So I'm going to paste it in. So I cropped the handle and the Twitter handle. That way, no one can say that you picked favorites, right? So,
Cool.
spoiler alert, one of these is mine. I'm just kidding. Let me reveal this all. So this one, me tapping those cheems. SpongeBob getting this is my favorite big booty cheems. Don't let my biases influence you. Okay, well, there you go. All right, we also got this one. This belongs in a museum. And that's a damn good Harrison Ford impression.
Mm-hmm.
Don't laugh too hard at my impression, Patrick. Oh my god.
I'm holding it.
All right, let me see here. I downloaded let's see here. I downloaded this one. This one's a GIF, but I had to download it as an MP4 so that you could see it without the so you could see it without the handle. Just a classic. I feel like this is such a dead giveaway, but
I was perfect with the conversation, so I was like, God, I gotta include this one.
Mm-hmm. It's cool. They're all cool. All right.
Yo, one more.
Oh, you got 4? Okay.
No. The other one we're not. The other one's something different.
Okay. So it's between these 3?
Yeah. Do you want me to put them side by side, or do you have photographic memory?
No, I have non-photographic memory, but I do have memory.
Okay, good.
So I go for the first one that you've shown me.
The big booty cheems is the victor.
Oh, Jimmy didn't include the other meme that I figured you'd pick because he wanted to win.
Really?
Yeah.
I must have.
Well, that's too late now. Save it for next time.
I'm sorry, Slick, if I missed it. Maybe
it's good.
We'll give a conciliatory goodie bag to them. Awesome. Well, thanks for helping us pick. Congratulations, whoever made this. You know who you are. I know who you are. Most of us know who you are, except Patrick.
Good.
Awesome. Well, look, man, really appreciate your time with us. This will officially be our shortest podcast, meme cast. We're rebranding, but this is going to be the shortest one. But I thank you very much, and I really look forward to having you back. There's plenty of stuff that we want to cover, but I understand you work a lot, and you've got a lot to do with Core. It's currently breaking as we speak because you've stepped away for this. So
no, it's never breaking for a couple of hours. Like it's actually pretty stable, even like in the times where it goes wrong. So don't worry too much about that. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for everything you've done. I mean, to be honest with you, we're in a really good place, and I feel a lot more secure about my investment knowing that you're here and all the things that you've done to get us to this point, right? So I appreciate you coming on the show and taking time to educate us and our audience and being so cool about it. I mean, I didn't think you ever laughed. I didn't think anybody could make you laugh, but it turns out you do laugh. And
well, he was laughing at his own jokes the whole time, so that doesn't count.
Exactly.
So, Patrick, any closing thoughts for the audience? We've got 600,000 viewers on Twitter, 800,000 on YouTube, 70,000 on Twitch. None of that's true at all. But
we are officially 69 followers, subscribers on YouTube.
That's cool.
Goodness gracious.
Breaking records.
Closing thought, don't forget to have fun. It's the most important thing.
I can do that.
Yep. Well, we're still here.
You have my axe. Sweet. All right. Well, with that, until next time, everybody, thanks again, Patrick, and thanks again, everybody, for watching. We'll catch you all next time.
Not your creed, not your keys, not your crypto.
Woo!
Woo!